I'm Johnny Hollander.
I'm Nick Mason.
And I'm Eric Iden.
And this is Neon Static.
Welcome to episode 3 of Neon Static. Time warp for us here in the Neon Static studios. We are re-recording this episode because of technical difficulties.
Yeah, and it's time loop.
Man, now my deja vu joke's not going to work.
No, I'm sorry. I've ruined everything. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah, I'm good.
We're going to move straight into our first segment to move things right along, and that is Anonymous Tip. Anonymous Tip is our listener questions and feedback section, and we did get some responses after some kind of prodding that on all of the possible Discord channels I could think to put questions in. And then immediately the general chat in GLC is like 9 pages up and no one's seen it. So we got some responses. I'm still trying to find the right places to ask these questions. And just sort of asked, what do people think? Did they have feedback? And we got a couple of responses I want to read here on the pod. Ooh, I didn't like that I said that at all.
Can't cut it?
One response. Not going to cut it. That help people.
Yeah,
the true me.
100%.
The true me says pod sometimes. Loki37 said that they really enjoyed the second episode. They liked the flow and the structure. And it's great that you actually talk about Netrunner. I got to say, what a low bar. Guys, we're talking about the thing and people love it. I don't know. You don't assume much knowledge, which is especially great when listening while driving, unable to look up a card on NetDeck or NRDB.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, no car accidents because of trying to figure out what the Regenesis says. All the chat about the cards, decks, deck building, cool combos, weird interactions, rules, timing windows, games, tactics, strategies, and tournaments is excellent. I am not sure how much you've listened to or are aware of Run Last Click, but of all the current podcasts, yours is most similar to that, and that was a fabulous podcast. So I was a avid listener of Run Last Click back in the day, and I can't say how much that is a compliment to me. That is, they were a great podcast. I love that show. And if anyone, Chris Edie, bad that I can't remember the third host's name, Lane, I think. Anyway, if any of you are listening, bring the show back. It was great. They started out, Chris was like, he worked in radio, so they had access to like a studio that they would go and record in sometimes. It's pretty high caliber stuff. So that's quite a compliment.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, Zeroth Maxima, who is a host of another podcast, the Slumscast or ShadowNet? Which one is it? ShadowNet, I think. They just released an episode today. Sorry, live figuring this out, and I believe I have it right, but I could be wrong.
Read this.
The podcast is the ShadowNet. Good, I was right. Okay, so Zeroth Master said, I really like the discussion about building a local scene from episode 1. What do you guys like to build? What else do you guys like to build? And I wasn't sure if that was an open-ended question just in general or what. And I asked and he said, it is indeed a trap question to see if you would segue into gushing over how cool Builder of Nations is. Well spotted. So
what is Builder of Nations?
It is an ID out of, yes. Builder of Nations is a Wayland? It's a blood money card. Yeah, Wayland card. The first time each turn an encounter with an advanced piece of ice ends, do 1 meat damage.
Oh, that sounds cool.
So it's a 40 card, 12 influence, and yeah, do meat damage by advancing things.
Oh, and it's when it ends. So even if they bounce off it, that is neat. That is pretty cool.
Or when it's trashed or any other, yeah.
Yep.
Lots of goodness out of Builder Innovations. I haven't played that since around then, though. Is it still, I guess it's still legal in standard. That's the problem with being in startup, right? We don't have exposure to all those things.
Mm-hmm.
We have one other piece of feedback, and then we'll move on. Rotage said, regarding flood, as in agenda flood, I like the segment, not much more to add. Just each situation can be different, i.e. if I'm playing as PE and I get flooded, I can risk trying to install naked agendas, as they may not check them, but as precision design, this would be unlikely to work. Also, if I was playing against a Shaper or big rig deck that wanted to set up, then again, I may get away with trying to score it out quickly. Which, yeah, we hadn't really talked about considering the matchup.
Yeah, I think we were talking more in just a generic, like, you are a random corp up against
no, we
average runner.
We talked about, like, for Thule and precision PE
personal evolution. Yeah,
right. That it was okay to get lots of agendas, but
right.
Yeah, reinforced. So
yeah.
Thanks for all the feedback, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. We want to move on to our 24/7 news cycle.
We do.
All right, this is the segment where we're going to talk about all of the Netrunner news. First off, we have some local news here. We're having a startup circuit opener this Saturday, the 25th of March, in Derry, New Hampshire at Midgard Hobbies and Games. We have actually 13 people signed up now, so things getting bigger than I expected. The initial reaction to a startup tournament didn't seem like there was a lot of enthusiasm around the startup meta, so I wasn't expecting us to even hit the 8 minimum. So this is kind of cool.
Yeah, I was worried it was going to be us 3 holding down the fort.
Yeah, we got to tell the store that, like, expect 16. There is probably at least 3 people that have not signed up on Always Be Running that are going to come. So
yeah, hopefully. So,
turnout's looking good. And also you got the prizes in, right? We have the swag to give out.
Oh yeah, yep. Those came in, the posters too, but we didn't have a chance to put those up in the store. So I don't know if we'll put them up the day of. Not very useful.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, one of us could swing down there before sometime this week. I don't know. Life's busy.
Yeah, probably won't happen.
Not it.
You can do it. It's fine. And also, outside of just the New Hampshire scene, there was an announcement on Null Signal Games' blog / news, their blog, that they announced a change in the lead designer. June Cuervo will be stepping down as the lead designer for the game, and McGregor, who has been taking care of leadership responsibilities while June was settling into her new job, will continue to serve as interim lead designer. This is news to us. I don't think any of us knew who the lead designer was up until this point, but we will look into and watch carefully and hopefully see great things out of McGregor and whoever steps up to take June's place. June's place. Yeah. And that's all we have for our news segment.
Yeah, and I think we're going to skip our focus group. Anybody who's paying attention might notice that that's gone. So we're going to go right into our accelerated beta test. All right, so accelerated beta test is where we talk about what we've been playing lately. And Nick, I feel bad because we just skipped over the segment you were going to introduce, and you also haven't been playing anything new.
It's true. Yeah,
Nick doesn't get to talk.
I have nothing to add, so it's fine.
So
when we get to the main segment, I am going to take over.
Yeah. It's going to be the Nick show.
Just in terms of amount of talking.
Nick is also on. This is our first recorded podcast where Nick has his fancy new microphone. He's on a dynamic mic. He's got a classic, a Shure SM58. Audiophiles everywhere will recognize what that is.
Yeah, they could probably tell what he was recording on.
Yeah, they know exactly.
You can hear the timbre. We're all on different mics tonight, actually.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, I just picked up. So Eric and I have been on the RE20s for anybody who's into this stuff, and the hype has been very high on recording this stuff. And we wanted a third mic for some other stuff that
Interviews
we're doing.
and things.
So I decided I would test out the SM7B and see which one I wanted to keep out of the RE20. So this is my first time recording with it. How does it sound?
It sounds great. If listeners have an opinion, they should let us know if Johnny sounds better this episode or last.
Boy, I am glad we are cutting nothing from this episode.
Well, yeah, let's get back to our accelerated beta.
What we definitely need is 3 minutes on mics.
Some people like that stuff.
I do. If this was me listening, I'd be hyped right now.
Is this a microphone podcast?
It could be.
Please, I'm out.
Okay, accelerated beta test. Let's talk about what we've been playing lately. I will kick it off. I have been playing as a shift from mostly supermodernism style built to last and nuclear sub Padma. I have been trying precision design, like a fast advanced precision design deck, largely with let's pull it right up out of the good old NRDB, and it's largely based on a locals deck. I don't know if it's a locals deck or just something that they saw online, but it's precision design. Moon pools I've added. That's where almost all the influence is going. 3 moon pools, obviously some spin doctors. What is the thing that makes this special? It's got 3 nightmare archives I put into that, which is just a horrible card, and it makes me feel like a terrible person playing it.
It should.
But I'm doing it, and it seems good because you want to jam out agendas real fast and then next turn seamless them with this deck and then pull the seamless back, or biotic labor and pull the biotic back. But for the seamless trick to work, you need to leave things on the table generally, although Moonpool might help with that a little bit. But if you put it out on the table and it's a Nightmare Archive, then you discourage them checking it every turn, I guess, is the point that I'm making. Or if they steal one, then you can offset them stealing agendas.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, it's also just kind of a generically good card. Like, it's not the best top deck, but it is the best card you have on top of your deck, I would say.
It like doesn't need any support. It just makes them have to steal another agenda.
Yeah, 1 or 2, right? Yeah.
I found in playing Duele that I very rarely got value out of it playing it on the table, but having it in my hand as something that they could pull instead of another agenda in my hand or something else they could trash seemed to be the way I found it firing more often, that or off the top of R&D.
Yeah, it's like the classic snare conundrum where if you feel ballsy, you can put the snare on the table and hope they run it. But if they don't, then you just wasted a snare and now your hand is less dangerous.
Right, exactly. It's always a danger if you keep it in HQ.
Yeah. Just keep it there. Wait for it to be a R&D trap and then keep it in HQ. And this also works if you want to pitch something to archives too. So that's nice, as the name implies. That's my corp. And the thing I'm probably more excited about is the kit deck that I've been running, which some folks posted versions of this. I think somebody won something in Spain or in a Spanish-speaking country. And it's a kit deck. What is the thing that makes this special? It's a kit deck with lots of 3D dives and 3 buzzsaws and a turbine, and it has 2 endurance, and I'm also running now prepaid voice pad in it, and overclocks, and just like a bunch of events, and it feels fun because it's also got Spark of Inspiration, so you start the deck up, you get a little bit of money, you drop a spark, you get a buzzsaw, and you can steal their agenda they dump behind 1 piece of ice turn 1, or maybe score a deep dive on turn 1 if you want. It's also got the Basilar Synth Gland and 1 Hippocampic Mechanocytes to offset that. So Basilar Synth Gland gives you 2 core damage, but then an extra allotted click every turn. So you can use Kit's ability, which turns ice into code gates, and the buzzsaws, which are very good at code gate breaking with the turbine, to then deep dive and get 2 agendas, and it's just fun.
Yeah, I think the addition of the Basilar Synth Gland is huge because it activates the deep dive, but it's also just like generically having another click is really good. It turns out.
5 clicks is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when you just need money.
But if anybody's playing Thule, that's probably a really tough matchup.
So, if you have the hippocampic mechanicides, you play that first. Then you get the core damage, and you're back to 5. But then
the core damage isn't
ontological.
Ontological is the thing. It's not flatlining.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's not. Yeah. It's not so much of the danger, and it does have no free lunches and pinholes, because it has to, because it's the runner deck.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't often win with that deck from flatlining. It was after somebody took a couple core damage. It was just so easy to score agendas.
Right.
I think it's almost if you start the game off with 2 core damage, I think you probably lose most of the time against Thule.
You don't really want to deep dive against Thule anyway.
That's true.
Because you use all of if I'm double deep dive, you might keep the extra click just for the click and 2 credit tax on your deep dive, but that would just be to close the game out, I think.
Right, and Thule is also not. It doesn't destroy programs. Like you just set up your rig. You just play a normal game.
And then you go patient and you just dismantle them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually played against this deck, and I know you've made a couple changes based on Nick and my suggestions last time we recorded this episode. You were having some money troubles, and now you've put in I keep wanting to say pad campaign, but I know it's not pad campaign.
Prepaid voice
pad and overclocks.
Yeah, and I can see those really smoothing it out because it does run a fair number of like run events and things like that. So just getting the money back there is pretty good. But like the pad campaign, or excuse me, prepaid voice pad always like struck me as a weird one, and it wasn't until I started playing actually with pad campaign that I started to realize like, oh yeah, just this little drip econ adds up really fast.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a brief child interruption there, but my first experience the other night when I put those in there, because the deck largely worked very well, and then it felt like it just needed money. I was always struggling for money. I'd get the engine up, and even though it was breaking things for pennies, I still was having an on turn and then an off turn getting money back. And I put the prepaids in there, and like, let me tell you, having 2 prepaids down and then getting to Spark of Inspiration to go find your one thing that you need for a credit is really nice. And playing things like even basic things like sure gambles for 2 credits less is amazing. So I don't know. I'm gushing about prepaid voice pad, which came out forever ago. So it's kind of silly, but
that's still good.
That turns out it's a good card. Yeah.
It's held, stand up to the test of time. Yeah. It was released in the spin cycle.
Yep. So I haven't played against that version of it, but we did play a game, a couple games the other night. And actually, I've been trying to make a kit deck work for a while, and I was trying to do it with Hyperbaric and Boat and Egrets, and just trying to turn everything into code gates. And it wasn't really working all that well. And I was thinking about moving to a standard rig with kit, but I hadn't thought of the deep dive, and I like that. That was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, I mean, I stole the idea. I was just playing against some random folks on JNet, and I played against this deck, and I was like, ooh, like early kid aggression deep dive. They were turn 1. It was Synth Gland, and that I was like, that's kind of weird. Okay, they're not worried about maybe killing them. That's fine. And then like they set up a little bit, and then turn 2, they deep dive and get 2 agendas, and I was like, holy crap, that was fast.
Yeah, and that reminds me a lot of a friend of ours who's been playing Sable deep dive deck, using Sable obviously to get that extra click. when you run the Mark, but it feels so much more restrictive. And I mean, you getting an extra click to do whatever you want with is a heck of a lot better than getting it after doing a specific thing on each turn, which you can't always guarantee you're going to be able to do.
Right. That deck also has a mild problem because it's spending all of its influence importing 3 deep dives, and then it has terrible breakers because you're in criminal.
Yes. Yeah.
And this has amazing breakers and a couple boats. And it's like,
yep.
I don't know. I don't think it's like the top deck in the world or anything, but it's a lot of fun to play, and it does not feel underpowered at all.
Nice.
So
maybe it'll be the top deck in our tournament. We'll see.
That'd be the bee's knees. I don't see it happening though. I get a little nervous and make bad mistakes when I'm playing in tournaments. So, yeah.
Well, don't do that this time.
Okay.
Don't be nervous.
I got it.
It's just a game.
Yes, that works every time.
So I've been playing some new stuff too. Like I said last time, I moved off of Thule because everyone started playing around it, and it was never a fun deck to play. It was just winning games. Once it stopped doing that, there was really no reason to play it. So
wow.
What was that?
I love the admission that you will make sure that nobody has fun so that you win.
Well, no, I didn't know it wasn't going to be fun to play, but it was winning, and you guys all wanted to keep playing against it to see how to figure out how to beat it. So I kept playing it.
All right, that's fair. It's our fault.
And I think it actually helped our meta a lot because we were all new and nobody really knew how to play around core damage and, all the, having to not run last click. I think everybody became better players because of it. So
it was really just a public service.
You're welcome.
It is kind of funny how that it did though. It did that ID enforces a bunch of relatively good habits to have. Yeah. Try not to run when you don't have any money in case you need to trash the thing. Don't run last click because you want to get the information on what's back there sooner. Those kinds of things are all good generally, and Thule kind of teaches you those by hitting you in the face repeatedly until you learn the lesson.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyways, I'm not playing Thule anymore. Maybe I'll surprise everyone and come back to it for the tournament just to terrorize everyone. But I decided I would try Ob after watching Andre on Metropole Grid play Ob, and oh boy, was that a hard deck to pilot. He rightly so, thousands of games in, made it look easy, but it was not easy. The amount of things that you have to keep in mind and the amount of knowledge that you have to have, not just about your deck, but about the order of the way things fire and everything, it made it where I thought I was setting up a combo to work, and then I would get surprised every time. And I started to figure it out after a few games with it, but it was making my brain hurt a little bit. So I moved off of that, and I created a take on the supermodernism deck, which I'm calling brutalism, only because it's another architectural style, and I'm hoping that it brutalizes people that play against it.
Yeah, I tried Ob for a bit myself, and even with a list of all the cards, their costs, and what they did written out beside me at the table, it was still something where I had a hard time piecing together all the different combos it can pull off, so that I could visualize okay, if they run this server, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my list of things to plan out to hurt them maximally. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was taking me a long time too to take all of my turns because of that. And having a list would have helped, not having to memorize everything, but it wouldn't have helped with me taking shorter turns.
Yeah, I think that's just reps at that point. With Ob especially, go play 20 games, and then you kind of have that muscle memory more built in. But
Yep.
But I'm liking the supermodernism deck. I had a lot of fun in our games. It was a much more straightforward deck to play, but it still has some neat tricks, which I won't reveal all of them here. But my favorite moment in that game was when I got to double Stavka you, and you were like, oh yeah, I can get through one Stavka. And then I flipped
Yeah,
over
because
the
I was
second
Kit, right?
one.
And I was like, I don't care, Stavka, I'm immune. And then you're like, next dice, let's res this Stavka. And I was like, whoa. Here goes both of my buzzsaws that I've installed, one by hand and then one because I did a spark of inspiration and just, of course, hit the second before anything.
And then you ended up having a third one in there. And you did eke out the win, which I did not think was going to be possible after that.
Just barely. Both those games. So this was last weekend night, and both the games that Johnny and I got to play that night were very tense and close, and ended up in we're both on 6 points and just trying to dance around that epic moment that builds up for the end. That's the good stuff for Netrunner.
You won that last one off of a deep dive. Ended up being able to steal 2. And then you pointed out after the game, you shouldn't forget that you have a token on
Atlas.
On Atlas. And I was like, oh, yep. I should have probably pulled something. So the reason I forgot about it was because both of my hostiles were gone at that point. You had stolen both my hostiles. Right. So I didn't have any 1-point agendas that I could just score out of hand for the instant win. And then it just made me forget that I even had the token, because I forgot that you can do anything else with it too. And I probably could have done something worthwhile and just didn't.
Yeah, that in that deck, especially if you're scoring, fetching the hostile for the final point on the game, whatever, if they give you just one window, you don't even need a window. If you give you a turn, right, you just fetch it and score it. No, but also like enabling your kill combo or anything like that. One of the pieces you're missing.
Yeah,
it's good. It's a good card. So Nick is still on wide NEH and Asa.
Fast. Yeah, I've now made some changes to the NEH deck to fit in that third moon pool. We talked about it a lot on the last recording, but I think I dropped a bladder wart. It's basically just an influence issue. And then I am considering reworking it to drop Funhouse and I forget the name of it, but there's the 4-2 agenda for NBN that has -1 advancement for
freedom of information.
Tag. There you go. But I've been considering dropping that for artificial crypto crash. The 4-2 that basically makes the runner discard 7 money when you score it. I actually found that was kind of overkill in terms of attacking their money. But at the same time, the only thing really that activates the tags in the deck is Funhouse, and I just found myself never rezzing Funhouses because it was never worth it or what.
What? So, Funhouse is
there's
so
a lot
taxing.
Of tag. There's a lot of tag removal though. It's hard to score tags and get them to stick long enough to be able to score out freedom.
You put a tag on a central, or you double stack Funhouses on a remote. My God, it's bad.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure that's correct. It's just something I want to play around with changing out the ice a little bit to drop the Funhouse, go a little bit lower on the ice cost, so that maybe I can just adding the moon pool is, it's an asset you discard, which the deck doesn't like to do that much. But adding the moon pool, changing the ice up a little bit, maybe it'll give me the ability to be okay with the fact that I dropped a bladder wart. I forget what else I dropped, but basically it took a slight hit in the econ, and I'm hoping that this kind of offsets that. So
I only saw you play 1, maybe 2 games with that, and you did not have a money problem. So I don't think dropping a bladder wart's going to make a difference. I actually thought it would be cool also to, instead of doing the third moon pool, if you got rid of your Eli's and replaced, I don't know what you'd replace that with, but that would get you the influence back to drop 1 bladder wart and be able to put 2 seamlesses in there to make it an even faster advancing.
Yeah, and I think I know what I would replace the Eli's with. It'd probably be Palisade. Because I do want to have some end the run on my remote, and getting it to 4 strength is a pretty good break point for a lot of things.
Yep.
if it's defending a remote. So that's actually, I believe, what I put in over the fun houses, but it isn't as taxing. It's not.
No.
I the more I look at it, the less I'm in love with it. But we'll see. I'm probably just going to end up playing the net deck version, card for card at the tournament, and that one has freedom of information and funhouse. So there we go.
There you go. Well, that's all of what we've been talking about. That's all of what we've been talking about. That's our accelerated beta test section where, talking about our decks. Gonna have a deck conversation. Oh boy. With that, let's move on to our next segment, spec work. Spec work is where we talk about rules interactions that we have noticed and encountered in play or observed people talking about and thought, that's an interesting topic. We should talk about that. And this came up in a game the other night that I played with a semi-local to us, Sonny. Sonny was a delight to play against. He's a a Central Mass player who has been around for a while, and that was fun. We got to play some games, and they were on Lou. They were playing Lou and had some imps going down, and I was playing that PD deck with Nightmare Archives. And when they accessed the Nightmare Archives, I figured, oh, geez, they're just going to imp it. That sucks. Like, shuts off Nightmare Archives. Finally, something that shuts off Nightmare Archives. But I was disappointed. And then JNet didn't allow that. And I kind of scratched my head and wondered why and asked the question. And the fine folks at GLC gave us an answer and pointed us to the steps of accessing a card. So the TLDR is that imp is the same kind of access or a trash window as a regular trash. But the steps of accessing a card are step 1 is the card is accessed. Conditions relating to the accessing of this card are met. That would include things like Nightmare Archives. Nightmare Archives, oh, damn, I had the card up and everything before, and I thought I pasted it, but Nightmare Archives just says when you access this card, when the runner accesses this card, they may add it to their score area as an agenda worth -1 agenda point. If they do not, do 1 core damage and remove this asset from the game. So when they access it, it triggers that first condition. And then in step 2, it says the runner may use a single mid-access ability such as the basic trash ability, and it could go on to say, or an imp counter, or some other thing that lets you trash. So that's the issue here is that first they have to make their decision on the core damage or -1, and then they can trash it, but then it's too late. So that's why that doesn't work. It also doesn't work against a snare or something like that.
Yeah, good to know, because I definitely thought that was how it worked. I thought that imp was the answer to those kinds of things, but not so much.
No.
The other thing that might be worth bringing up, which I noticed when I was playing a lot against Johnny's Thule deck, the window to steal an agenda is after you access it. So if, for instance, you have run a Thule deck with no clicks left over, or you don't have enough money, by the time you get through all the ice, you can actually use an imp to trash an agenda so that you don't steal it and take the core damage. Technically a possible thing, probably a bad idea.
I mean, if it stops you from flylining.
Also, if it's a 1-point agenda, that wouldn't actually get you closer to winning.
That too. Yeah, if it doesn't get you at a good break point, you can just be like, nope, not interested. This is the stuff you put in here just to hurt me.
I just wish that Nightmare Archives worked that way. It would like pretend it to be an agenda.
Yes, some way to play around it.
Right. Like, I wish that Nightmare Archives was a -1 point agenda. Just straight up. And that instead of stealing, the runner could take a core damage. And if it was that case, then you could do exactly the imp thing, and it wouldn't act as like the super, It would still poison archives, but it wouldn't act as the no, you can't deal with this thing.
So it actually make Nightmare Archives way worse for anybody not running Imp.
Right.
Because you'd have to spend a click and 2 credit against Thule. You'd have to spend a click and 2 credits, and if you didn't have that, you'd not only get a -1 point, but you'd also end up taking a core damage.
Oh yeah, that'd be rough.
Right. Exactly. Yeah,
we shouldn't design the game.
It would be just making it an agenda would hyperpower it with Thule. So
yeah.
So another one that came up was the interaction between Chesva and pinhole threading. So Chesva is 2 refilling credits. They refill at the start of your turn, and you can spend hosted credits during runs on central servers. Pinhole threading, of course, is run any server. If successful, instead of breaching the attacked server, access 1 card in the root of another server. If that card is an agenda, you cannot steal or trash it during this access. So if you happen to be running a central with pinhole threading, that you're running archives or something, and then you pinhole into their remote server that you think has an upgrade or something you want to get rid of, you can spend the credits off of Chesva to do it, because you are still attacking the central server. It's not something that changes the attacked server. It just basically changes what you access instead.
Yes. And so they're technically, to be technically correct, they're recurring credits. But you said refilling credits, which is thematic with Chesva since it's coffee.
Exactly. Yeah. At the beginning
so on Chesva, that's canon now. They're refilling credits.
Yep. At the beginning of your turn, somebody comes around and just tops up the cup.
Yeah. Let's get in touch with the rules team and have them add refilling credits, but just for the one specific.
Are you are you pouring the coffee on like the servers? Like
yeah.
Yeah,
trash the stuff.
That's how you're trashing things. Yeah.
So that's the rules interactions that we have for this episode. And bear with us for 1 second. We are a podcast. We do have cost to upkeep. So we have a brief note from our sponsor. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Eric.
Do you ever feel like your head is just going to burst keeping track of all the things you need to remember between your work and personal life?
You know I do. Sometimes I can't remember even basic things, like when to take out the garbage or how to talk good.
And Nick,
is that me? Sometimes I forget.
I think it is. Remembering is hard. That's why I'm excited to tell you both about a revolutionary new service to help keep the information you need to remember to the absolute bare minimum.
What's that?
It's called Archived Memories by Haas Biroid. With HP's patented cerebral overwriter technology, they are able to download, store, and selectively delete all those pesky memories that bog you down. I did it last week.
But Eric, you're always saying how corrupt and sinister Haas Biroid is.
Am I? That sure doesn't sound like me.
Wow, that's kind of scary. Does it hurt?
Probably. I don't remember.
Can they put the memories back?
Maybe.
How much does it cost?
That's the best part. The first 100 listeners to use promo code FORGET will have lifetime access to archived memories completely free of charge. I think it's for research.
That seems suspicious.
I'm in. Where do I sign?
Just visit the Haas Bioride website and enter the promo code.
Yeah, what was it again?
What?
What was the promo code? Eric?
Who's Eric? Let's get back to the show.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that word from our lovely sponsors. Next up is Into the Depths. All right. So this is going to be our main segment. We get to talk about a single topic in depth. And today we are going to be talking about the crossover between card theme and mechanics. So I was talking about specifically, I kind of don't get Jinteki's thing. Like I have a rough idea they do like some sort of cloning thing. So we thought we would look in depth at all the Jinteki cards in Borealis cycle, except for the ice, because the ice is just kind of, it does net damage. You get it. And kind of look at what the card tells us about Jinteki as a group. So what sort of lore we can derive from the cards, and specifically, intentionally, we did not read the actual lore first. Went out of our way to avoid learning things before we start talking.
And I think
maximum ignorance.
I think
exactly.
Eric read it though, right?
I didn't read it. I listened to a couple of podcasts that had interviews with some of the narrative directors for No Signal, and they sort of talked about some of these things. But I found the lore, because this came out after or before we got into the game, and I found the lore and was going to suggest we all read it, and then you're like, let's see if we get it right first, and then go back and read it and see how wrong we were.
Yeah. We can issue the mea culpa about being incredibly wrong about everything next episode.
And last time we did this episode, we sort of had a bit of a discussion on them being like the Kaminoans from Star Wars, the cloners.
Yeah.
I think that's what Jinteki is in the Netrunner world.
Exactly. Yeah. I clone people and make you a virtual, or not virtual, I guess, cloned artificial army.
I've had the opportunity now, since I'm in front of a computer, to Google the Kaminoans, and gotta say, I don't remember these guys at all.
They feature so heavily
in the second movie.
Oh, okay. That's not Star Wars.
You know, like the prequels.
Hot take. I mean, I did. I liked the Darth Maul fight scene, but
everybody
that's about it.
liked the Darth Maul fight scene.
That's about it, right? Yeah, because it had what's the song? The
Duel of the Fates.
Yeah, that thing was awesome.
Really good.
Yeah.
My
hairs are raising on my hands. I got goosebumps thinking about it.
Wow.
I mean, I think Hayden Christensen was absolutely awful, but despite him, I still think that the movies were enjoyable for me.
All right, and that's going to do it for our Star Wars critique segment.
He gave us some great memes, though.
He did.
Yeah. The more disappointing part, the last thing I'll say, was that I actually used to like Natalie Portman, thought she was a good actress, and she was absolutely awful in those.
He can't help himself.
She is a really good actress.
She's fantastic.
It's that George Lucas is quite possibly the world's worst director of specifically dialogue, and he only gave her dialogue to do.
They were so awkward. Like, they had no chemistry. It was painful to watch their scenes together.
There's a lot to learn about George Lucas's psychology and how poorly he wrote a romantic relationship.
Netrunner.
No, okay, anyway.
No, this is the microphone and Star Wars podcast.
This is our podcast within a podcast. Anyway, so the centerpiece card, obviously, for Jinteki in the Borealis cycle, which I will remind you is what we are talking about, is Isuak Adaptix. So the subtitle there is Sustaining Diversity. It is a division. And whenever you score an agenda that you did not install or advance this turn, place one power counter on this identity. For each hosted power counter, you need one less agenda point to win the game.
Fewer.
And the flavor text is bringing Mother Nature up to speed.
Let's get the fewer thing out of the way first.
Oh yeah.
No, Nick's just gonna keep going.
Yeah, no. I'm just barreling over it. No, yeah.
Right. Grammatically correct would be fewer. Is it pet peeve? Please fix it. Okay, go ahead.
So the this one kind of mystified me as to how the mechanic could possibly match up with the identity itself in the story. The mechanics seem to be about your setting things out there and then just kind of leaving them. But if you start to look at the card, and in fact, all of the cards kind of together, it does start to make a little more sense. So specifically, it's talking about adaptix, right? Adapting to a relatively hostile version of Earth that we have all created, or Wayland mostly has created with all of its horrible pollution. And the imagery on the card has a like tower overlooking these manicured fields. So I was kind of thinking of this ability as it is taking energy from nature or natural processes. And once those grow to a certain point, it's able to harvest them for even more than it would normally get. So it's creating new hybrid plants or something that can survive in irradiated fields, that kind of thing that, allows it to get more out of nature than it would get if it were just trying to like 3D print a new organism or something like that.
And the other half of the card is water. So it's also overlooking water. And there's this weird little circular part of the structure on the right side of the card in the water that I'm pretty curious what that might be.
Foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to make the same jokes again the second time around.
But they don't know
we're
that
trying to hit the high points.
It's
It's tough to recreate the magic of the first episode, though, I gotta say.
Guys, it was really good.
I was actually pretty sad. I think that might have been our best episode ever, and probably ever that we ever will do.
The world will never know how good we are at this.
Yeah. We just cursed the entire audience with the fear of missing out. About
inconsistently good to the point where we can't recreate it. I think that's largely the thesis that we came up with Issuac. So on that theme right there on the water, the next card we're going to look at is Bladderwort, and we are going to move through these at a medium speed clip.
At a medium pace.
At a medium pace. What is that?
That's
what's
Adam
that from?
Sandler.
Huh?
Adam Sandler.
Okay. Oh.
At a medium pace.
I remember now. Okay, so Bladderwort is a real plant. It is a carnivorous plant in IRL. That's in real life, for those of us who never played an MMO. And it eats like insects and algae and things like that, right, in the real world. And the mechanics on the card, when your turn begins, gain 1 credit. Then if you have 4 credits or less, do 1 net damage. And the flavor text is prey and seawater sucked in, all in the space of a millisecond. So the picture is depicted as in net space, we think. There's like a blue, cybery looking fractal image on the top that looks kind of like water. And it's doing net damage. So we can kind of assume that it's in net space, but we think that Issuac has studied the Bladderwort plant and used some of its tactics, I guess, to do some net damage. And then Nick, you had a theory on the low credit thing.
Yeah. So my thought of it is that the credits kind of represent what resources you have available, and the Bladderwort, when it gets hungry, basically when the resources around it are low, it would strike out and do the net damage. Now, why it's net damage and not meat damage, I don't know, aside from Jinteki is the net damage faction.
Well, that's why we kind of thought that maybe this is not a physical. This is a digital representation of Bladderwort, not actual Bladderwort. Or it could be that the game still has to work, right? The card still has to work in the context of the game. So maybe it's just net damage because, like you said, Jinteki is the net damage faction.
But at the same time, if you look, like, it kind of looks like it's going to like digital static up near the top of the image. Yeah. So I honestly don't know which one is correct, but I feel like both of them could be cool.
I'm down with both of them being cool.
Mm-hmm. So the next card, this is actually one of the cards I was most excited about when we got like sneak peeks at Parhelion before it was released. And it's Simulation Reset. It's an operation, trash up to 5 cards from HQ, shuffle that many cards from archives into R&D, draw that many cards, remove this operation from the game. And it has the flavor text, the worst part about failed experiments, the cue for the incinerator, overheard in the Issuac Adaptix cafeteria. And it's got people moving around with like hovering carts with creatures in them that they're bringing somewhere for disposal.
They're like puffins.
Yeah, with weird eyes.
Yeah, maybe they're not real puffins.
Or maybe that's why the thing needs to be reset.
Right. They didn't
because
get
their
the eyes
puffins have like weird glowing pupilless eyes.
Yeah, maybe they're supposed to be puffins, but they came out weird.
Mm-hmm. That's my theory.
They're not a puffin. I remember, but puffins are cute. These have like a scary face.
Yeah, these are like evil penguins.
Burn the evil penguins.
I think they're dinosaurs.
So mechanically, right? This is getting rid of, disposing of the things in your hand, HQ, and then reusing like the ashes, I guess, or the genetic material from them.
And
So
not just material, but like the knowledge that you've gained from the failed experiment.
Okay. Could be abstracted. So, the overarching theme so far for Ishuak is oh man, I just launched into the barrage of what I was about to say and then I forgot the word.
They're the recycling faction.
Recycling
they don't like to waste
and
anything.
like ecology, right? They're supposed to be trying to affect the environment in a good way. And how they're achieving that is the sort of sketchy side of things under wraps.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I guess that involves a lot of burned to death evil penguins. So
It's the world's saddest zoo.
yeah. Oh God. So the next one up, and this one's actually I feel like it's like simple, but I kind of love how simple it is Blood in the Water. So it's the X advancement requirement agenda worth 2 points. X is equal to the number of cards in the runner's grip. And the flavor text is some tests require specific conditions. And I kind of looked at this, once we started putting this all together, this one made a lot more sense to me because what it actually is that when the runner is injured, say by taking a bunch of net damage and their hand starts to get small, it is easier to score this because there is literal blood in the water. Whatever agenda you are pushing with this, it needs you to chum the waters a little bit to draw something in to get that runner. So it's extremely like simple, I feel like, but also like the most sinister because like what test are we doing that requires dropping a bleeding human into the water?
So in the background of the image, you can see an orca whale very faintly near the top.
Yeah.
And like a silhouette of like a shark kind of to the right of the runner. So there's all sorts of like, apex predator, swimming prey thing and happening. Yeah. It's great art. The next card we have is Nanocivic Grid. And this one also was a head scratcher a little bit until I think Nick kind of cracked it. Or at least we think he has. Maybe we're wrong about all these, but it's an upgrade region. Whenever the runner approaches this server, you may turn a face-down piece of ice in archives face up, and if you do, resolve one subroutine on that ice. Here at the edge of the habitable world, they extract the future from the bones of the past, is the flavor text. And that bones of the past is the thing that we're sort of latching on to here, where it seems like my interpretation at least was that they are studying like fossilized bones and things like that and learning new techniques to do what they did, right? Like to weaponize their DNA and what they did, turning it into ice into like a subroutine. And
right. And the art on it has like a bunch of these like biodomes, I guess. Anybody else remember that movie? Anyway.
Yes.
But it's got all these different biomes in like glass domes. And so that's kind of where they are doing all these experiments on whatever they are resurrecting or, splicing in DNA from like a woolly mammoth or something into something else.
Yeah, or like Pauly Shore.
Yeah, or like Pauly Shore.
Sorry. That's a biodome reference? Okay.
I got it. I got it.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Quick, Johnny, save us.
I just started looking something up. I was distracted.
I don't have the cricket sound effect anymore. What have I done? I've moved it.
All right. We're moving on to Regenesis.
Yes.
All right. So Regenesis is a 3-1 agenda. It's research. When you score this agenda, if no corp cards have been added to archives this turn, you may reveal one face down agenda in archives and add it to your score area. And the flavor text is a quote from Vientiane Keeling. Esteemed guests, by the end of this demonstration, you will see that extinction is now only a temporary state of affairs. And the image is like some sort of all-terrain vehicle and a
woolly mammoth.
A drone flying, and there's like a woolly mammoth near the thing, and there's a bunch of other woolly mammoths in the background as well.
Yeah, really cool art.
Nick, what was it that you were saying?
So the idea was that there's like something that has been buried for a while, like the bones of, say, a woolly mammoth. And they're able to, with their technology, with the Regenesis ability, the research that they're doing, they dig that up and turn it into something usable, something that advances what they want to do right now. So you've got stuff in the archives, right? Which I was kind of thinking is like, okay, that's the buried thing. And then if nothing's been added to archives, that's something that's been there for a while. Then you can take a face down card and score it, advancing your agenda, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like a really neat sort of theme for things to like tie in the time that something has been in archives and the woolly mammoths and all that.
But you're talking about like sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You're taking it more of like a literal, like this something that was buried for a while that had time to marinate, sort of.
Yeah, and also like it, the fact that it's face down, it's something that nobody knew was there, right? Like I don't know, maybe I'm overreading the flavor on this one, but like I felt like it was something that the more you looked at it, the closer the mechanics and the theme that I kind of pulled out of it ended up matching up.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. I took it as more of a, I mean, obviously the artwork there is evocative of more of what you're saying, but I took it as more of an abstract thing. And this was like a physical representation of the abstract in the image, but that this was knowledge that needs longer to kind of stew and for them to think on before they can extract something out of that.
Yeah, I could see that, like a research study or something that needs something else to kind of turn it into a practical application.
Yeah, but the face down part, like you said, I mean, that doesn't really fit with my original thought on it. So I don't know how to explain the face down portion of that.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of surprised by that. Like, is there a circumstance outside of IMP accessing an agenda that would end up with a non-face down archive or non-face down agenda in archives?
There may be card abilities that say like reveal something, flip it up, but generally no, right? Like when you discard an agenda, it's face down until the runner steals it. And then it's face up.
Yeah, it's no longer in archives. So
right.
Yeah, that's like a weird limit on the card, but in any event, so noted in the flavor text of that last card, our next card up is Dr. Vientiane Keeling. She is an an academic, and her text is, when you res this asset and when your turn begins, place 1 power counter on this asset. The runner gets -1 maximum hand size for each hosted power counter. Her numbers never lie, but she doesn't write the words that accompany them. So I took this as she's a researcher. She is kind of leading the research at Isuak. And basically, the longer you give her to perform horrible experiments and do terrible things, the less you can slow her down or stop her just by exposing, the agenda of Isuak. Maybe she has had enough time doing all these horrible experiments to come up with a hybrid or something that creates, potable water or something from seawater, or and something useful to where she can say, well, yeah, sure, we had to torture a bunch of people to death, but look at the result that we got out
For
of
the
it.
greater good.
A giant crab man.
yeah. If the art is anything to go by, then yes, she is designing giant crabmen with improbably small legs.
Yeah, but you know
Skip
what?
leg day.
You know what's delicious? Crab meat.
That's true.
So,
look at the size of those delicious crab.
I know,
balls.
right? It's like she's developing a future food source for the world. Delicious, gigantic crab meat legs, hands, arms.
I love it.
It's a human. Never mind.
Yeah, well, look, his claws are probably still full of crab meat.
Yeah, I'm saying.
They could engineer it that way. Okay.
Ship Theseus and like, what's not carnivore. When humans eat humans, what is that?
Cannibalism.
Cannibalism. Is it cannibalism if you replace all parts of humans with a crab? Anyway.
The answer is yes.
Yeah. Okay, I won't do that then.
Just so you know, there's it's science.
Ethics lesson learned.
But yeah, so the hand size here kind of like referencing like the runner's ability to do things, right? Those are things that they have available to do. It gets smaller and smaller the longer she has to go.
Smaller and smaller the bigger the crab claws get.
Yes.
Hand size is directly inversely proportional to claw size.
It's a direct mass transfer from the runner's hands, which become tiny, just microscopic, directly to crab claws.
Yep.
We've done
now
it.
My favorite.
We've cracked the code. This is exactly what the lore says when we go and read it. I guarantee it.
We're getting further and further from the actual lore, I think. But
that's fan wiki, right? We can make this happen. Let's move on to hybrid release. I don't know if everyone saw my cool hand gesture, of course, on this audio medium. Hybrid release is a 2-1 agenda. When you score this agenda, you may install one face-down card from archives. By disabling their body's ability to create a variety of necessary enzymes, we've ensured that I can't read right now. We've ensured their loyalty to us. If they don't return for supplements every month, they die. Simple as that. Dr. Vientiane Keeling. So the art on this shows hybrids. The hybrid and hybrid release are hybrid humans. They're kind of corally looking monstery people. And they're wading out into the sea, and there's a HUD display, and one of them's looking back at us kind of nasty with red eyes. And the HUD is like showing biometric looking data on all of them.
You know what I didn't notice before is the HUD actually has a like DNA double helix on it.
Yeah. At the top there.
Up near the top there.
And it's like, I don't know, the double helix is like long in one section and short in others. And is that normal? I don't know.
This also must be one of the drones that we've seen in other cards because the Isuak tower is actually in the distance. So this is not from
right.
the tower.
I didn't notice that before. Yeah, off to the right-hand side.
Well, if you look also on the Isuak card, there are little mini towers around it too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be one of those. Or is it like the little bell? Is there a big ball? And let's do some investigative journalism here.
Nanocivic Grid also has a bunch of little towers around it. And also the central part of Nanocivic Grid kind of looks like a shark. Anyway,
it does.
So you know.
It's a shark.
It is, yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part about Nanocivic now. Okay, so hybrid release is a really cool card, especially when we talk about the next card with it in tandem, which is neat.
Mm-hmm.
But so the theory here is that we're sending all of these hybrids out that are dependent on us and loyal to Jinteki, us being Jinteki here. And they're going and doing work for us, right? We've made them go to either gather things or install cards from archives. Like, they're going off and doing some work, and that's represented in that
We
form.
made them install cards.
Yeah,
From
go play
archive,
Netrunner for us.
You got these horrible coral monsters just in there, like going through your old servers, trying to find that one file.
Why did they give us such bad hands for typing? So yeah, Johnny, take us to the next card, because that's the good stuff with this, in my opinion.
All right, yeah.
Yes.
So the next and final card is Moonpool. Moonpool is an asset. It's a facility, and its text is: remove this asset from the game, trash up to 2 cards from HQ, reveal up to 2 face-down cards in archives, and shuffle them into R&D. For each agenda revealed this way, you may place 1 advancement counter on an installed card. And the image is actually an image of a Moonpool, which Eric and I didn't know what this was. Nick assumed that I would know because he thought I was in the Navy, but I was in the Air Force. So, Nick, since you were the only one of us that actually knew what a Moonpool is, why don't you describe it to people and what it's actually used for?
Yeah, so I learned it in my time in the Navy, or rather playing Subnautica. But a moonpool is a way that you can approach a like a ship or a submarine from the water, and basically it's like an opening in the bottom of it that the water is kept out of through air pressure, like a diving bell or something. And so you can actually go directly from the water to inside without having to go through like an airlock or something like that. So the image that we have here is that it's this hybrid something swimming up to a pool of water in what must be like an underwater facility.
Yeah. So in hybrid release, they are walking towards Isuak. If the tower off to the right is what we think it is, and in Moonpool, they're coming up through the Moonpool, which you can see on the Isuak card on the right side of the card.
Mm-hmm.
It's that little circle thing, that the foreshadowing moment. Remember, everyone? It is underwater, because you can see in the card art on the, like, right underneath the words Moonpool, there's a blue wall, and there's like that's a glass window out into the ocean. You can see on the far right there's like a little eel.
Yep.
See the eel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can see some sort of like plant-like things back there.
So mechanically with this card, right, it's more of this kind of thing where, what do we think effectively when you're trashing 2 cards from HQ to do the shuffle, right? 2 face down into archives, and then shuffle back into R&D.
Yeah, so I think like the hybrids are going out and they're getting information that was previously inaccessible before Jinteki created the hybrids to go out and explore the depths of the ocean. So you're sacrificing like accessible resources in order to send them out to go get previously inaccessible resources, which they're bringing back. So that's that's how I see the trashing from HQ, in order to then get stuff from archives and put them into your R&D.
Right. And then you're also learning things, right? This whole thing is also a big experiment. And that learning things is represented by the agenda counters that you get to put on things, right?
Put on things.
Yes. That's what I said.
Okay.
But it allows you to advance your agendas.
Things.
So that's obviously like successful experiments. You're getting new data in to be able to do that.
Yep, I buy it. It's cool. I also love this card. It's a lot of fun.
Yes. And I will say, like, this one, I feel like this like ties the whole set together for me, like in terms of the theme of everything. I had no idea. And I think this whole topic started off with me saying, I have no idea what is going on with Moonpool. But
right.
Once you put all the pieces together, it actually all kind of fits into this little story about a horrible outpost on the side of the ocean where they are growing monsters and using them to dig up things that probably should not be unearthed from the acidified, inhospitable oceans.
And what a wonderful world it is. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, but everybody had crab meat. All the crab meat they wanted.
But a surplus of crab meat, which maybe is people. Well, and that's a wrap for episode 3 of Neon Static. We've been your hosts, Eric,
Johnny,
and Nick.
If you want to get in touch with us about anything we've said during this podcast, we can be reached by email at neonstaticpod@gmail.com. We're also neonstaticpod on Instagram and Twitter. Our handles on Discord are Canister, Triforce Legend, and Goldbrander. A link to the New Hampshire Netrunners Discord will be in the show notes, where you can always find us.
Thanks for listening.